What's up, Ramblers? I know you want to get into today's podcast, but real quick, make sure you're keeping up by following Assistance HQ and Offsource HQ across all platforms, anywhere on all social medias, to keep up with all of the latest content, updates, exclusive, and everything else. And for business owners, visit offsource.tech for all of your office outsourcing needs, a virtual assistant for every occasion. All the links are in the bio, so go check them out right now. Now, here's your podcast. Before we begin, a moment from our sponsor. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of The Ramblings, and I'm actually going to just ramble today. I have no thought pattern or process really, or outline, if you will, for today's podcast, but I really have like a bunch of things like I kind of want to get off my chest. And just some things I guess we can talk about as we go about. So this is going to be actually a fun podcast. I'm going to try that. It's going to be like a little segment I do. So I'm just going to call it The Ramblings Part 1. So it's just things that I talk about. So like earlier this morning, I had a conversation on live, not necessarily like a conversation. It's just me talking to live really by myself. And I had a conversation about the power of referrals and the two primary ways for you to get referrals being one, networking, which is like, I guess the kind of the first part where you go out and you're telling people that, you know, about your service or product or whatever. And then those people say, oh, well, I don't need it, but I know someone who does. And, you know, you get a human share, like, you know, how we have a share button on social media and everything. We would have a human share, and the human share is just basically a referral. And so the other way that you can get it is if you do well in whatever it is that you're doing, whether the product or service, you know, it performs above the expectations for the customer or the client. You now have someone who wants to go tell other people about what it is that they experienced, creating another human share, but more deeper because they've experienced your product or service and they like it and they want to share it based on that experience and feeling, not just the assumption that someone else would like it or like to use it. So I covered that. I've realized something I want to kind of like curb out is every day, every morning, I wake up and I struggle to not, how do I put it? I struggle to not watch and scroll through my social media. And I don't want to say like I'm addicted to scrolling through social media, but I find it very hard to stray away from it. And I sometimes like tell myself like, oh, consuming content is part of making content because you have to see what's out there. And while that's partially true, I feel like it's sometimes very hard to differentiate or draw the line between objectively looking at content saying, okay, this is what people are liking, this is where the trend is going, this is where we can then implement our style of content into this new wave of content, whereas you're just kind of scrolling, being a consumer of content. And so trying to find like a balance between being a consumer of this content and being an objector of this content is like a very hard thin line that I've been trying to walk. But it's something that I've been trying to do more often. So like today, I really ended up scrolling, but it did give me an insight, if you will, a little bit onto the context around how I'm going to be doing more of my content. I've now have like a cycle. So I've decided, you know what, I'm going to make my life a whole lot easier where, okay, yes, consuming content is part of what I do. So I'm going to make all of my mornings about consuming content and making content. So I've already done a live this morning. I'm doing the podcast. It's already like 11 o'clock. So a lot later than I would normally like to do it. I probably would have liked to start at the podcast maybe an hour and a half ago. 9:30, 10 o'clock is like primo podcasting time, especially after I do the live, which gives me a lot of time to like edit and do like snippets and make like really start making the content and get the content going out there. But you know, it's just like a process. And so I have to be like, I just feel harder on myself if I want to get, you know, better results. I feel like lollygagging and taking too much free time can be a waste of time. You know, like, yes, free time is needed, but when you're not necessarily hustling or grinding and putting and using your free time effectively and productively, you're not going to get what productivity yields. You're not going to get the fruits of what productivity would have brought you had you been productive instead of just kind of laying around. So that's like an inner battle that I've been trying to have with myself, as well as this inner battle of trying to come to understandings of other people's struggle. Because one of the big things is everyone has struggle. Everyone struggles. And so something me and my co-founder Ben have been talking and discussing is the level in which someone who makes it out of the struggle has the ability to give advice or give some form of education about how to get out of that struggle. And it's like, oh well, someone else is struggling more than you, so your advice may not have any bearing. And that does have some weight, but coming from the struggle, it's coming from the struggle. You know, it's not much different. Because if that's the case, then we can compare your struggle to someone in Africa, someone who's from a third world country. In immigrants, immigrants from third world countries have much harder struggles than the people already born here. We were born in a first world country. Yes, we're struggling, but we were born in a first world country that people are literally risking their lives for. Like, something that I really feel like is is being ignored is everybody has privilege. People say, "Oh, you have to accept the privilege that you have and use it in a good way and recognize that you did have privilege." And that's very fine and dandy, but there's always going to be somebody with more privilege than you. And so to tell someone who came from absolutely nothing, who did, like, we're going to use the example of being an immigrant, where an immigrant who came here and their parents did well. And so that child, where through a good portion of their life had it very hard, and then through their parents, hard work and smart work, not just hard work, hard and smart work, the parents were able to then change the latter half of their childhood. So let's just say from the age of 14 to 18, the parents were doing well, and so the child had a different particular life. That doesn't negate the 14 years of third world country struggle and living that child went through. And so while they made it and they don't have to struggle the same as they would, either in a third world country or even as some people here where it's as bad. Let's just say the household makes $60,000 a year. That's not a lot. There's still going to be lots of struggle. You're probably not going to have a large savings. And if it's all on one parent primarily, where one parent makes 40,000, the other one makes, like, say 20, you still have to have factor in taxes depending on where they're living at. Like, if you are, say, Spanish and you migrated from Mexico to California, you making 60,000 doesn't do squat diddly for you. The cost of living is too high. So you're still going to struggle. And so what people fail to realize is there are always going to be someone with more struggle than you. Someone that can say, "Oh, I struggled harder than you." You have to recognize the privilege that you had to get that. For example, someone being born 6'5", 6'6", 6'7". Oh, you were able to go to the NBA. This person was good at basketball, but you happen to be 6'7". Okay, but this person that was, that's much shorter, that didn't have that same opportunity to go to the NBA, because he's not 6'7", went to all of the best camps that there was, had all of the necessary resources to go to the NBA, but wasn't 6'7". So we have to recognize everyone has privilege, because to say that person was 6'7", only earned it because they were 6'7", is absolutely bogus. He put in just as much work. So everyone has privilege. Everyone gets opportunity in some form or fashion. You have to make the most of it, because everyone has more opportunity. And so to come from nothing and then have a little bit of something to yourself, to come from absolutely nothing and to have a little bit of something for yourself, and then someone who who came from an even worse situation than what you came from says, "Well, you were privileged and so you didn't really earn what you had." What? So you have to learn where we draw the line, because groups are able to be groups, ranges. How much more so, how much of a better lifestyle are you living on $5,000 a year more? That's less than $1,000 a month. That's less than $500 a month. So around 100 and change dollars per week, which isn't really going to do much in terms of lifestyle. Therefore, meaning parents are going to have similar struggles, meaning children are going to have similar upbringings. So where do we draw the line? And that's just something that's on my mind. And so coming to terms and trying to deal with the ideals of applicability, because we have accountability, and everyone likes to talk about responsibility and accountability, but where's applicability? Where can that apply, and who does that apply to? Because everyone has different circumstances, everyone has different pretenses, qualifications, what prerequisites, whatever you want to call it. Everyone has a different perspective. And so to automatically assume everyone is down is just as bad as assuming everybody is up. And so we have to know where applicability for accountability and responsibility comes in. Can this person be responsible for this? Does it apply to them? So that, and these just been some things that are just on my head that I've been kind of wrestling and talking over and doing things with. Another thing I've been less wrestling with is growth. I've been trying to grow in terms of evolving and maturing the content that I make and how I make that, and really honing myself as being a media kind of person. And so I just feel like I'm not doing it enough. Maybe that's what it is. I'm just not doing it enough all day, every day, where it's like, okay, this is where I'm seeing noticeable progress in the content and media that I'm doing. I've low-key actually seen a decline because I'm still not as consistent as I would like to be with the podcast, especially with posting. I feel like it's just a mental drain to have to force yourself to do everything, and not on top of not having the same pressures as if you had an actual boss. Being your own boss comes with the holding yourself to your own standard. And one of the hardest things about being your own boss is holding yourself to a particular standard, because a lot of people don't do things when they're supposed to with the responsibility or pressure of having someone else. So whether it be being a parent, whether it be being an employee, whether it be being a good boss, a lot of people are not good when it comes to reporting to someone else. So if you have to be a good manager or a good boss and you have to report what you do to someone, people still slack off in that. So when people have to report to themselves, they can doubly slack off. It can almost fly out the window. The standard can almost fly out the window. So something I've been trying to do is really ingrain and hunker down and hold myself accountable and really hold myself responsible for my own deadlines and my own actions. And so it really has been kind of going in steps. And so that's just been something that I've been trying to do, and especially with my content, because it's not being as posted frequently, it's not as consistent, and I have to hold myself accountable. I have to punish myself, and that's the hard thing. No one punish people, just say, give themselves a slap on the wrist. Oh, I learned my lesson, I'll do this next time. I'm not gonna say that I mentally destroy or whoop myself, but I make a mental note of, listen, you got to buck up and you got to do something uncomfortable. You can't just have it be like a mental slap on the wrist. You have to mentally discipline yourself, if you will, correct yourself. Hey, when this happens, what goes on? So something that I've really just been trying to slowly make changes to my lifestyle. So for example, I no longer use my Xbox, and I've really been thinking about pawning and selling it. So it started with it just kind of sitting there, and I'm like, okay, I'm just not going to use the Xbox, because whenever I use the Xbox, it's like a guilty pleasure. It's like, okay, if I have time for Xbox, I could be working, I could be being productive. I am doing something that is not productive, and I'm not where I exactly want to be. It's not only that it's not productive, it's not I'm not where I want to be at. A lot of people can get that part misconstrued, where it's like, oh, well, you have to have some time for yourself. Completely understandable. Take all of the time you need for yourself. But if you're spending your time doing things unproductively, if every free moment of your time isn't spent trying to better your normal time, not just your free time, but your not free time, if you're not trying to better the circumstances of your free time, then you must be happy with it. And if you're not happy with it, then all of your free time should be spent trying to make better regular time. I spend my free time to make better normal time. What is my normal time like? So I can have more free. My normal time is if I'm always working, I need to do, and I don't have a lot of free time. So I'm going to use my free time to work to create more free time for myself in the future. Because if I continue along this path, I'm going to be continuously be unhappy with the amount of free time that I had. But if I buckle down and say, you know what, I'm going to take my free time and invest it into something that will bring me more free time in the future, then we have something that we're working towards, so that in the future, I now no longer have to worry about how much free time that I have, because I planned or positioned myself for whatever goal or milestone that I was trying to hit. It also has leaked into my marketing, because content, like my goal is to create like content marketing, and like I don't want to have to do social media ads, you know? So I've really been trying to do a lot of content marketing, so that my social media marketing, like content marketing is SEO plus social media marketing all in one. So that's like the really big kicker. So when I do just like content or just SEO and like ads and social media and stuff, it's like, I just feel like I always am in a constant state of feeling like I'm not doing enough. Like, I feel like sometimes I don't bring enough value to the podcast or to some of the content, because it's like, hey, what do I know? What can I be an expert in? I'm 23. How am I going to be an expert at 23? I'm not an expert in business. I'm not an expert at being a virtual assistant. I'm probably an expert at being an assistant. Ooh. I don't even think that's a thing. Can you be an expert person in supporting other people? I don't know. So I've just been like racking my brain trying to grow. And I think that like I'm gonna call this part of the pod, like not this part of the podcast, but this podcast, like growing. Because I know I said I was gonna like say like the Ramblings part one and everything, but I think saying growth, like the point of the Ramblings is to not only educate, inspire, and bring motivation to other entrepreneurs, founders, professionals, and like people of the Bauer community, which stands for Black and Underrepresented. It is also to showcase the growth of me, my company, and other companies that I, continue to make. And it's more like a personal branding thing. Like the Ramblings isn't something for off source. The Ramblings is something for me, and me an extension of off source, which is why I tie everything together. But really, it's the Ramblings is like a personal branding thing. It's my own personal podcast. It's not a podcast for the company. Like like it's there, and that's like another thing too. Just being able to do everything. That's like the best perk for me of being a business owner. Like not having a specific, like I have the skill set of supporting, right? But that's not fully actionable. Whereas like graphic designing, computer, actionable, plumbing, fixing things, actionable. Supporting is more based on what that person needs. And so I have to be flexible to be able to cater to people's needs. And so I've really been growing into myself and seeing how that is playing a part. But understanding that, like, you can't help everybody. And so it's just finding a balance. Like a lot of things are coming in terms of like balance, and it's just so difficult to really not only find yourself, but find what you're good at and how you're going to continue to be good at it. Because you can be good at something and then become bad at it through not practicing, and as the thing evolves and not keeping up with it, it's just a lot different, So I've been doing a lot of personal thinking lately, which has really been, I think, one of the stunters of content. Because when you're doing personal thinking, like there's nothing excitable to share. I'll put it like that. there's nothing, no one's excited about new revelations that you've come to in your life, or new thought patterns that you're thinking of, or how you have a new perspective on the world. No one cares about that, and that's not really a content thing unless it's like a niche where people care about that. People care about themselves and what you can do for them. And so just trying to come to terms with how can I best be, or how can I best be valuable to other people, is a really complex balance. And so that's really almost kind of why I like doing the podcast. The podcast allows me to vent, to share my story, to talk what I would like to say, especially when I can, do a podcast and it's just me. I'm able to do this uninterrupted. Like when I do the podcast, when I am recording for the Ramblings, not even just the live, but when I'm recording for the Ramblings, I feel a sense of it's just me. Especially if I can get like dead silence and quiet and no one else is in the house or anything, I really am just into it, because it's like I am able to share my story, I'm able to share my perspective, my version, and people actually listen. So one of like that's just something that I'm more interested in doing, and it's part of being a business owner. I'm literally being able to do everything and anything as a business owner. When you do what you love is the best part. Like being the actual owner part, like running and managing a business is great. I love that part of the business. Like making the hard decisions, the making the tough. Like growing up, I always wanted to be a CEO. Like when they were saying, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" I would like if you could have one job, any job in the world, what would it be? At the time, it was to be the CEO of Apple, because Apple was on like the cutting edge of innovation, and they were like hailed at least as the cutting edge of innovation on all this new stuff. Like this is when they were introducing the Apple iPhone, when they were coming out with new computers and all this great stuff. And this is when, going to going to a conference, like a tech conference, actually was like the unveiling of new technology. It was being the CEO of either like Apple, Samsung, Nintendo, because I was huge on being video games, Microsoft. I always wanted to be like the CEO of like some large tech company, because I wanted to be like the person in my outfit, suit, turtleneck, suit, whatever you want to call it, whatever outfit I chose to wear on the big stage, unveiling the new company product, unveiling the new company service, unveiling the new company revenues. And that's like I've always wanted to be the big person on stage. Like that's always like it's like a kid wanting to be in the NBA. You don't want to just play basketball. That's because here's the thing. If the goal was to play just basketball, you could be a coach, you could be a GM, you could be a trainer, you could be an like a skills coach, you could be anything that surrounds being in basketball and still play basketball for a living. You could go to the EuroLeague, the G League, the D League, intramural leagues, the big three. But the goal for all of the young basketball players is to be in the NBA. Why? Because I want to be on the big stage. And so for being a business owner, it was more than just, I want to be a business owner, I want to be like rich, da 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 da. Like everyone wants to be rich. Okay. I want to be the person on that stage with the microphone in my ear, and like the microphone to my mouth and the headset in my ear, announcing and hearing the round of applause as I say, we just surpassed like expectations and all of this other stuff. And so that's just really been what I wanted to do. And so now to be in the position of being able to do that, it feels amazing. It feels amazing, and it feels anticlimactic, because it's nothing like achieving the milestones and successes and everything. It never feels or lasts as long, even if it feels like how you thought it would feel. It never lasts as long as you think it would last. You think that, oh, as an NBA superstar, you've won Rookie of the Year, you've won MVP, you've won finals, you've gotten all of these accolades. Like, let's look at a basketball player, right? Let's just take I think let's just use Derrick Rose. Okay, yeah, Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose won Rookies MVP, right? In a matter of 3 years, before the pre-injury Derrick Rose, right? This man in 3 years has won Finals MVP, I believe scoring leader, and not Finals MVP. He didn't win. No, he won Rookie of the Year, season MVP, and I believe in one of those years he was like the scoring leader or something like that, right? Let's just say he won a championship, right? Had he won a champion, what more is it to your career? Do you have to do it? Like, does the process then start all over again? After you get to the point of winning a championship, LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, after you've gotten to the point of having scoring titles, MVPs, finals MVPs, what more? What's next? Being a finals MVP lasts a couple months, weeks maybe. How long until being a finals MVP wears off? Do we even like? It is October 20th. Do we still care that LeBron James won the finals? Are we still are we still celebrating the finals? Like, they might be on vacation still. Like, oh, but is it is it like a super big deal? This isn't even his first championship. So he's accustomed to this at this point. He's done this before. So you have to love what you do, the process. And that's where I'm trying to find a balance. And that's where I want it. Like, that's business, man. That's why I do everything. I think I lost my train of thought, but that's this. I really enjoy doing like this little rambling segment thing where I just kind of talk, because I enjoy just giving, like, being able to just have thoughts, like as the train of thought. And so we've probably been recording for like 20-25 minutes or something like that, right? And to go from the beginning of the conversation till now, it's just me, no outline. I have no outline. I'm just like, well, you guys like physically can't see me, but when I post like the snaps, not the snaps, but like the snippets and everything as content, you guys are gonna see that it's like I'm not sitting here like going through a notebook. And so for me to follow the train of thought, like, ooh, I like that as a name. See how when I see the oohs and the ahs, like, that's why we call it the ramblings, because I'm just talking and talking. I don't really have a point, but it's almost like talking to myself. Maybe that could be the title, Talking to Myself, Part 1. Maybe that would be a segment, Talking to Myself, Part 1. Because when I'm talking to myself, but recording it so that you guys can listen in and give your advice or whatever, I always get some type of growth, which is really what led me to doing these segments. Because I was talking to myself one day, I was talking to myself one day, and I realized I come to some form of, I don't want to say epiphanies or like revelations or grandeur thoughts of a plan of how things work. And so I was thinking, what if I recorded this thought process? Because I'm kind of like talking to myself, going through things. And I was like, what if whenever I had a thought, whenever I had something in my head, I recorded it? And what it would be is my immediate and post immediate reaction and thoughts to certain things and how I react and how I would, looking back, in retrospect, react. So the point of me just kind of talking is being able to work out problems. I work out problems best with speaking, especially when I have a soundboard and when people are like, oh, what about this and what about that? And so when I talk out loud, I really am able to get a full sense of a thought or idea because you're able to say it out loud. And especially when I say it out loud for someone else to be able to hear you, you really think about what you're saying and you're like, did you hear yourself? Does that make sense? And so I'm really able to just play around with it. So I love these ideas. I thank you guys for just kind of sticking around and just listening. So I'm going to be doing a lot more of these talking to myself. So stay on the lookout for talking to myself part 2. Before you go, Ramblers, if you enjoyed today's podcast, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and make sure you're following me across all platforms at Assistance HQ. Catch up on exclusive content and keep track of everything going on at OffSource. See you in October.